Welcome to Mystery Marathon, Volume 5 or 6? 5.
Well,
I think it's 5.
really?
I think so.
We
It's
did
definitely 5 or 6. It's not 4. I know that.
witches,
Yeah. Werewolves.
vampires, werewolves.
Yeah. And something else. But we've done at least. We've done it. Anyway.
What's the last one we did?
I'll think about it. All right. First
Hmm.
movie we watched. We're just going to jump right in this. Oh, I guess I should say that the reason we're doing ocean horror thrillers, whatever, is because Kaylee Bottom has had a new what?
Obsession,
Yeah.
hyperfixation, special interest.
Kaylee gets hyperfixations. Probably one new one every month. And now it's the ocean. So much so that she's looking into going back to school.
Yes.
For what?
Well, not technically for the ocean,
Yeah.
but for a degree in biology
Well, we just went to
and
SeaWorld.
conservation.
We
Yes.
were going to Universal Studios for everyone's like birthday, and then Kaylee was like, "I'm calling an audible here, and we're going to SeaWorld to look at the whales and the dolphins."
We had a great
So
time.
I was like, "All right, ocean horror makes sense. And we're not going
Yeah.
to do sharks. We're going to do movies set in the ocean." So we started here. First movie, I haven't seen this in forever. This is from I think 1989. Yeah, it's 1989, and this is Dead Calm with Sam Neill, Nicole Kidman, and Billy Zane. I think they are literally the only three people in the entire film.
No,
There's
there's the
somebody in the
captain of
opening.
the boat that Billy Zane's character is like the
Oh, right,
filmographer, and then like the
on the
two
footage.
girls.
Yeah, on the
Yeah,
footage.
on the
Sure.
footage.
Yeah,
That's it. And then
I
there's
think that
also
works.
another character.
Yeah, there is
Yeah,
a doggo.
their little dog
This
named. Hold on, I feel like I remember the name
oh my god, we
because
watched
we were
this
like
probably 2.5, 3 weeks ago. But we have
Benji.
been Benji, like Benji.
I don't
Uh,
remember his name now. I thought it was Ben.
Ben. It's just Ben.
Oh, it's just Ben. It's not
Yeah,
Benji.
you just put in Benji.
I'd call him Benji.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did watch this a few weeks ago, so this is because this was the first one we watched.
we did. Yeah,
Um,
we. Oh my god, this. And we only watched 5, and one of them we didn't even do for this. We just saw it in the theater, and we were like, well, we might as well throw that in there because it's an
it
ocean thriller,
counts.
so it definitely. And we weren't going to really review it on the channel, so I was like, we might as well just talk about it real
Yeah.
quick. So yeah, we got way behind on these.
We had a lot of stuff going on.
Oh
We
my
went on
god,
vacation and we had the
excuses,
girl's
excuses.
birthday,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stuff that happened. So
yeah. So Dead Calm. What'd you think about this one?
I really like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked all of them, honestly. This one, I like Sam Neill. I always am like a fan of him in general, and this was really interesting to see Nicole Kidman so young. But I thought this was very thrilling, and I liked it. It's a scary scenario to imagine yourself in. Obviously, one of the things about being like, aside from being afraid of like anything under the water, like just being out on the ocean when you're isolated,
Yeah.
that's just obviously a recipe for horror in general because you're just all by yourself and no one can come help you that quickly. And that's definitely the case, here where they're like, it's horrible though. Like their son gets killed in
Yeah.
this car accident, like in the very opening. So they kind of just go out to sea to try and like reset and get Nicole Kidman's character to be like not freaking out as much, I guess. Was she in a hospital for a while? I think she was.
Mm.
Anyway, but it's lucky that her husband is like a naval officer of some kind, I suppose, because like that's you definitely, if you're gonna go out and be, it goes for kind of any wilderness, I feel, but
Yeah.
like you want to be either the person that knows everything you can know about that area, and like especially if you're on a boat, like
Yeah.
how to operate a boat, or
Yeah.
be with somebody who's that person. Same thing if you were like in the woods or whatever, right?
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, the opening definitely reminded me a bit of Possession, where he kind
Mm.
of comes back from the military and his wife is different, and then she gets left with some dude, and just there was giving me Possession vibes,
Mm.
obviously being Sam Neill as well. um but yeah, the kid getting out of his car seat and she's like reaching
Oh my
back and then
god.
they hit something and the kid goes through the
Oh my
window.
god, it's awful.
That's definitely one of the gnarlier things I've
Yes.
seen in a movie in a
Yeah.
little while, because typically you don't see kids die in movies, and you
Yeah.
definitely don't see them die in
It was
movies. Typically
so
it's like
dark.
it's usually like implied that they died. If
Yeah.
they die at all, it's usually shown off screen, like not shown at all. It happens off screen. With this, you literally see like in slow mo a dummy kid
Yes.
thrown
It
through the
was
window.
bad.
I was like, that it actually made me laugh, I have to admit.
Sure, just
Um,
because of how horrible it
well,
is.
not only that, but it just looks so funny. This
Yeah.
little like dummy thrown through the
It's
window,
horrible.
and he's like straight as an arrow.
Yeah.
And we that's what reminds me of The Howling,
Oh
right?
my
With the dummy
gosh.
thrown off the stairs.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. Dummies
If they
for
hadn't done it in
bodies is so
slow
funny.
mo, it
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have been as like, you wouldn't have
it
seen
wouldn't
how
have been as
stiff
funny.
it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, I agree.
But the
They
slow
should
mo
have
is
done it
also
full speed.
supposed to be like, a lot of people say when they're in car accidents, right? Like things slow down and you kind of like, anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah.
this was produced by George Miller.
Hmm.
Been we just watched Witches of Eastwick, which is directed by him, in our last week's Witches episode. So this one was produced by him. And then they've been at sea for 32 days.
Yes.
Nicole Kidman is only 22 years of age in this, and
Yeah.
Sam Neill is 42. Um, I know that only 4 years later, him and Laura Dern get cast together as a married couple, and he got quite a bit of shit for that
Yeah.
because he was like 46 and she was like 20 something.
Mm.
So they definitely like to cast Sam Neill with some younger ladies,
Yeah.
and didn't really have any issues with their relationship, like the look of it. Like when I looked at them, them being a couple didn't like stand out to me of like, oh my god, she's so much younger than him.
It's weird because I do feel like sometimes with like older movies, like the younger women don't look that young to me.
Mm,
Like for some reason they look like adults. I mean, they are an adult. Like 22 is an adult, obviously,
sure.
but they just I don't know. I always kind of feel like they look older than they are.
Yeah.
Maybe the style of clothing or makeup or whatever, but I feel like nowadays we get a lot more like 30-year-olds who kind of look and act younger and maybe more immature, and maybe that's part of it too. Where it's like I really believe like she just lost a kid, like she's a mom, like I don't know, she felt like a very mature, like grown up person. So it didn't really make me think that their relationship was like inappropriately aged, but it does suck because that happens a lot of times in Hollywood, right? The young 20-year-old with like a 50-year-old. You're like,
Yeah, it definitely happens a lot.
not that it
I
can't happen in real life, of course, but
No, but she's definitely not 22 in the movie,
mm,
right? Like she has a kid with him
yeah.
who's a little older. It's been a while since, they got married, they had the kid. The kid's a few, 3 or 4 years old, gets killed. Then, he goes off and then she's in the hospital and then they go out. Like she's got to be at
She's like
least
late
late
20s,
20s,
early
early
30s.
30s.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and he's probably supposed to be the age he is, which is like 42, which is you and I, right? Are
Yeah.
about 10 years apart. And so I think that's what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think so too.
But the actors are
Yeah.
20 years apart.
Yeah. Although she does look very like for Sandra or not for Sandra Bullock, sorry, for Nicole Kidman, this is the youngest I have ever seen her. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. You haven't seen BMX Bandits.
No, I haven't. And Billy Zane is like, he's a scary guy. I feel like he's pretty intimidating in this too.
Hmm. He's definitely
Um
nuts.
I like what I like about this is like the setup and like the mystery in the beginning. Like when they like come across the other boat and he's like, paddling towards them in like this little rowboat and is like telling them that everybody's dead and like whatever
Botulism.
botulism and stuff like I didn't know what was going to happen. Like I'm thinking, is this
Yeah,
supernatural? Is this
sure.
what? And so I like all of that. I
That's
think
what's
that's
good.
done really well.
That's why you go into movies blind.
Yeah. Yeah, because then obviously, Sam Neill's character, he goes to
Investigate.
investigate and finds everyone's not killed from botulism. They're like sliced up and
Yeah,
stuff.
murdered.
Uh, and yeah, obviously from there things go kind of crazy.
Yeah, him having to kind of survive this sinking ship. I would have thought he would try to patch the holes and whatnot. But yeah, he's trying to like make this thing work, and he's having to communicate with her on a broken comm, and they're clicking and this and that, and he's trying to get back to her. I thought all that stuff worked well. The thing that was pissing me off, and this is just my own personal thing, and I know you agree with me for sure, but I did not like at all how expendable and how much she didn't seem to really care about her dog. That
I
that
agree.
really bummed me out. Like
Me
she
too.
just did not seem to give two shits about that
Because
dog.
you would kind of think that like her mother instinct would be like latching on to something to take care of. I don't know. Even besides
Absolutely.
that, like, but that's what
Or
I
maybe
would
she's
think.
just numb.
Maybe that's what
Because I
happened.
mean, she straight up has sex with this guy
Yes.
just because she's trying to get him to
Trust her.
let his guard
Yeah.
down and whatever. So she's pretty broken in that
Yeah.
way, where she's able to just basically let herself get raped.
Yeah. It's awful.
Um,
It's really horrible. Yeah, but the dog, I do feel like, I was worried too because you think like that Billy Zane's character is gonna like hurt the dog. But there's a really,
nope.
it's fun because she's like throwing something out for the dog to get, and he's like jumping in the ocean and like swimming back, and then she throws the keys or something into the ocean, and he swims out to get it and bring it back, and Billy Zane's character's like, yeah, come on, like, good boy. And
Yeah.
he's fine with the dog, like he treats the dog fine, the dog is fine with him. But it's just like Nicole Kidman seems to like, when he's like chasing her around or whatever, I mean, and maybe it is because she's like, he's not going to hurt the dog, but I don't know, that all sucked. And then of course she's the one that ends up killing the dog,
Yep.
which is horrible. It's so sad because they set it up with this like he can open doors because he's a smart boy,
Yeah.
and he goes to open a door that she thinks Billy Zane is behind, and she
Yeah.
shoots him with like a spear gun.
Yeah.
Horrible. I hate
So,
that.
and she just doesn't seem to care at all when the dog's dead. She
No.
doesn't seem to care at all when the dog is on the ship with him. She never tries to protect the dog. She never seems to care. All the emotions from the characters are pretty downplayed, in my opinion. I feel like they're like pretty uh like bland when it comes to
Mm.
their reactions,
Yeah. I think that's fair.
especially her. But
Yeah.
as I said, that could just be because her kid died, and
Yeah.
she's just like, I don't give a shit. But
Yeah.
that's not how she plays it. It's weird.
It is weird.
Um, but the music has breathing in it, which was kind of
Oh
cool.
yeah, I liked that a lot. I actually thought it was really unsettling and it made me anxious. Yeah.
She also like could kill him and but leaves him on the water to be able to like be found and kill other people again, which I thought
Oh
was super
yeah. It's
annoying.
like just kill him. Like he's I mean, you're either gonna make him, which I guess, like, yeah, you want him to like suffer or something if he doesn't get found and just like drowns and or starves out there.
Yeah.
But
And then when
yeah,
she like tries to like push over or whatever, she could have fallen off the boat as well.
definitely.
And then she's beyond screwed.
Yes.
Then the boat's moving and she's off of it and she's in the water with him. So that was pretty stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yeah, he gets back on the boat and they end up actually like killing him for
Yes.
good, but some dumb decisions made,
Yeah.
and her not like, caring for the dog. That definitely hurt my experience with it.
I
But
agree.
overall it's a good like late 80s thriller. This can't be classified as a 90s thriller. It just misses that window by 1 year.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty thrilling though overall. So,
Yeah.
hmm
All right, so next up, do you have anything more to say about that one?
no.
Okay, so the second film we watched, which is very similar-ish to a bunch of these films we watched, is Leviathan.
Yes.
This is from director George Cosmatos, who directed Rambo 2, Cobra, Tombstone, even. So this guy has had some damn good films under his belt here. We got Peter Weller, RoboCop himself, and Meg Foster, who's always got the most insane, piercing eyes.
She does.
She plays a real bitch in this, and yeah, so there's a mining facility that's it's very reminiscent, of course, of the movie Underwater
Yeah.
with Kristen Stewart. They're down there mining for silver.
Yeah, this is kind of a common theme in all the ones that we watched, and I would imagine in like ocean horror in general is it's always like we need to get them to the bottom of the ocean because like the deeper they are, the less we know about it. So we have like, more room to play. And it is really tense and scary. Obviously being on the ocean, like on a boat and getting stranded or whatever, like that has its own set of problems. But when you take characters and put them, deep underwater,
Yeah,
it's not only now that they have to worry about like enemies or villains or whatever, but also just the environment becomes extrememly dangerous. um so it definitely was really common in like all the movies we watched.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. They have a lot of similarities to
this
them
one
for sure.
reminded me of Alien. I was getting Alien vibes on this one, like with the
Alien and the Thing,
crew.
yeah,
Yeah,
very,
and the thing.
very much Alien. I guess
Yeah,
you're, yeah,
yeah,
Alien. It's a big Alien ripoff,
yeah,
no doubt about it. This
yeah.
is the follow-up script from the writer of Die Hard, and then the other writer of this also worked on Blade Runner, Unforgiven, and 12 Monkeys. So it also has Daniel Stern from Home Alone, as well as Ernie Hudson in it. So it's got a hell of a cast. It really like it got a good director. It got good big writers. Like they were really going for something with this one. I don't know how much of a hit this thing was. I always remember the poster and the name and whatnot.
It's a great name.
It's the name of the ship that they find, and then they
Mm-hmm.
bring back something from it. And of course, like the ship they find an alien, right? They find an alien ship.
Mm-hmm.
They bring something back, and that thing infects people.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, any unknown origin type of disease
Oh,
that's
sure.
in your body is like the scariest shit ever. When you're like patient zero,
Oh god, yeah, it's a horrifying scenario.
it's always this. It to me that might be the scariest thing in film. Period.
Yeah.
Is someone getting infected by something with like unknown origins, and who knows, you're gonna be the test subject for like
Right.
what does this do to your body, and it's like your chances of survival are pretty much zero, and they're just gonna have to figure it out unless you have plot armor, right? Unless you're like Mulder or Scully in an X Files
Oh my
episode,
god, the amount of times they get infected with something.
something
So
no one
funny.
knows, and then they figure it out. Everyone else dies, but of course they
They
get the
survive.
cure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they're not, I guess they're not patient zero usually, so that's the difference.
Sometimes
But
they are, and
so
they
yeah,
still
sometimes they are. They do have
survive.
plot armor.
They do.
um I mean, yeah, I thought this was an interesting disease cuz it's like it changes, it like sort of like evolves the people to have aquatic characteristics and stuff, which was interesting. It's definitely a body horror
Oh
movie,
yeah,
first and foremost. And there's some cool, like that, like at the end, obviously, the creature at the end, super cool looking. And I think like you mentioned the thing, obviously, that's part of it is the body horror, and then the other aspect is the like, the paranoia and like just general like
yeah.
tension among everybody. And I think that's all pretty done fairly well.
And I because it's linked to Alien, with its story and tone and everything. Space and the deep ocean
Oh
are
yeah.
are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
We've been watching documentaries on the ocean. Guess why? And there's been some shots where they're down in the midnight zone, where
Yes.
there's all these particles that are floating, and we get a shot of just that with like a little light and something out there, and it literally looks like a
It looks like
sky with
space.
with with stars in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you go outside, there's no oxygen for you to
Yeah.
breathe.
You
The
yeah.
weight of things will crush you. You'll freeze to death. I mean, it's almost identical, and it's extremely unexplored. We've only explored 5% of the ocean.
Which is astounding.
We know more about the surface of Mars than we
That
know
is
about our ocean.
crazy. That was a fact we heard last night, and I was just like, wait, what? I mean, to
Yeah,
know more about another planet than areas on your own planet
yeah. Well,
when you haven't even we haven't even physically
the ocean
been to
is just
Mars.
so massive.
It's so big. And yeah, I mean, like again, it makes sense, especially with all these horror movies. Like if you send them down into this deep area where it is, hard for people to go, and there's so many like life forms that are they like, the creatures that live in the deep sea look like aliens, like just straight
Oh,
up. I
100%.
mean, a lot
The
of the
anglerfish.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of the creatures that live in the ocean in general, like they look so different to what you are used to seeing on land, obviously with mammals and birds and even like reptiles and stuff like fish and cephalopods and all those are just they're so different.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, this one definitely wasn't I although I liked all of the movies we watched, this one wasn't my favorite of this like specific kind.
Yeah.
But I thought it was fine. Like I appreciate the practical effects and everything. You know, RoboCop kind of scares me a little bit. Like in general, I feel like I find him hard to relate to. I find him hard to like trust, and I think that was part of my issue with this movie is that his character I was just kind of like,
He's
I
the
don't
gruff
know.
everyman.
But it's more than that. Like the other guy, what's his name in The Abyss?
Yeah. Ed Harris.
Ed Harris is great. Ed Harris does that, but I find him much more like not even relatable, but just like trustable.
Hmm. Yeah.
Whereas I don't know.
Peter
Yeah.
Weller just
He's
gives
just
you
he's much more
vibes.
cold, yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't like him as much in this.
Hmm.
And perhaps if another actor had played that character, I would have been a little more into it, but
I mentioned Rambo 2 earlier. The guy who plays Troutman, John Rambo's like, you know, trainer, like his commanding officer in the Rambo movies is in this, which I thought was a nice little connection to Rambo for any of my Rambo fans out there. Um, Probably my favorite shot of the in this movie is when the character Six Pack is thought to be dead, and then he's like moving in the background.
I was
I
just
thought that
gonna
was
say,
eerie as
yes.
shit. The way that shot, very The Thing,
Yes.
and I loved it.
Yeah, I was
That
just gonna say that's a great scene
that is a great
and really
scene.
creepy.
And then right at the end, fucking just couldn't do it. They couldn't help themselves. They had to kill off the black guy. Right? Ernie Hudson is gonna survive. They're up there. It's like, okay, we survived, and of course the Leviathan monster has to come up and
Yeah,
eat
and
him.
grab him.
And then they have a total like Jaws homage here, where he's
Yeah.
like, "Say ah, motherfucker."
Yeah.
This is like the R-rated Jaws line as delivered by Samuel L. Jackson.
It
But if
was
Samuel L.
yeah.
Jackson was playing RoboCop,
Yeah. Yeah, the ending is pretty cheesy for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun like Alien the Thing ripoff
Yes.
set deep under the ocean. All right, last next one. Do you have anything to say about Leviathan?
No.
All right.
That's it.
Next movie we watched is the Dustin Hoffman and once again Samuel L. Jackson, like I just mentioned, even though he wasn't in Leviathan. I just mentioned him because he's very mentionable. As well as Sharon Stone. This is Sphere. I haven't seen Sphere since it came out, so I had very little memory of it. This is Michael Crichton.
Hmm.
Um, and I think this happened right after, or maybe before. I think it was right after Jurassic Park. So they were kind of just
Mm.
gobbling up
His work.
his books and being
Yeah.
like, he's gonna be the next thing. This is directed by Barry Levingston, obviously who directed Rain Man. That's why Dustin Hoffman's in here. And Liev Schreiber is another actor in this that's noteworthy here.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I mean, this has some Annihilation vibes to it for sure. You got rich people lying to scientists, very Jurassic Park esque, as well as Annihilation. They're telling them to that there's this um,
It's like a
it's
plane
a plane
accident.
crash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's brought in because he's a therapist, and he's going to talk to these victims, survivors, and he's
Yeah.
like, "You have to this." And this Dustin Hoffman's character is totally full of shit in this movie.
Totally. Yeah. This was one of my favorites that we watched. I really like this one.
Really, this is my
Um
least favorite.
oh really?
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah,
Yeah, I like this one. I thought it was really unique and yeah, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. But yeah, his character, it's really funny because it's like, so they bring out all these different scientists saying that there's like some kind of plane crash, but then it gets revealed that there's actually this sphere underwater, and they're gonna, or they don't know it's a sphere, but there's this like a spaceship or something. There's a
yeah,
plane, like not a plane. There's some part of a craft
yeah, yeah,
underwater, and like years ago, Dustin Hoffman's character was asked by like the Bush administration to write like
yeah.
some, like, what would we do if there was contact with like extraterrestrials, and so he like literally admits to it by being like, I
I
just
made it up.
bullshitted this
Yeah,
whole report by being like, you would need a physicist, a mathematician, a biologist, and a
and
psychologist,
yeah,
and here's the names of the people that I would pick for the job, and he just picks like people he knows and like friends. Like he literally picks this girlfriend slash patient that he has, which is messed up.
who he was having an affair
Um,
with,
yes,
which he even
and
admits in this movie he was wrong for doing it to her.
yeah. So, but that's it's funny because it's like, dang, you just got yourself into such a situation by doing that. But it also is like worrying because you're like, well, I don't know how many people in real life do you think do that? um,
Oh, sure,
yeah, where they're just like, I'll phone it in. Like this isn't that serious.
sure.
You know, because he probably was thinking like that's never gonna happen. Like we're never gonna have
Well, he thinks it's bullshit.
extraterrestrial. Yeah, well, he's like, I got $35,000 or something, which is a
35, yeah.
down payment on my house. Um, so
I don't
yeah,
blame him.
yeah, it's just funny though, and it sucks for all the other people there
Yeah.
that kind of just get pulled into it.
Yeah, this is when Samuel Jackson was making a movie like every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's obviously in Jurassic Park as well, so he's a holdover from there. Um, but Samuel Jackson made the most movies in the 90s. Like he was the number one actor of the 90s. He was in like so many fucking things, and it's just funny when you watch anything from the 90s. That's like the joke from Ted where they're talking about Samuel Jackson, and they're like, I don't know who that is, and he's like, have you seen any movie ever? He's the black guy in it. That made me laugh because in the 90s that legitimately felt like
Yeah.
authentic. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, he really is in every fucking movie in the 90s, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
One disconnect I had for sure happened maybe about halfway ish through the movie. So Queen Latifah's character
Mm.
dies pretty tragically. I mean, death is typically tragic, but it's like it's pretty brutal, and no one seems to give a shit at all.
Oh yeah, their
And it was
reactions
really
is
weird. I was like,
definitely
"Am I supposed
bizarre.
to care? Because you don't."
Well, because even I don't remember if it's her, but where the general is like, so and so died, and he says it really casually.
Yep,
Is that her?
that's Queen Latifah's character.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Whenever Samuel L. Jackson's character like wakes up and is like eating food, and they're like, "Oh, she's dead."
Nobody cares.
Yeah, that was definitely weird for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's this is one of my favorites that we watch, but I definitely think that there's a lot of like criticism that can be thrown at it.
There's
I
the
what I
level of
liked about it,
paranoia was just lacking for me for what they're going through.
I think they could have amped the paranoia up, but I did like how everybody was acting towards each other, especially when it gets down to like the final three.
Yeah,
I've liked everything going on there, and I just like, I've really felt like the situation of these people who have no training to be deep underwater are stuck underwater with an alien, life form that they think, or some, right, alien technology, because obviously they don't. What ends up happening is that the sphere basically gives them these powers where all of their like subconscious
But they're not.
fears
It's not
and
aliens, right? It's just humans from the
right,
future.
but it's alien to them, and at the time, like before they find out, uh so like all their feelings and subconscious fears and everything are just instantly like manifested, and I thought that was cool. That's what I liked about it, because I think that that makes for, like, I don't know, it's just unique, and I thought that was very interesting. Um and finding each person when they're like, this is something I'm manifesting and that's something you're manifesting. I think that that maybe could have happened earlier on, and we could have spent more time like knowing that was what was happening, because for a lot of the film you do think that it is an entity that's messing with them, which I like that you have that, where you're like, oh, it's this, and then you find out it's something different. But I agree, though. I think they could have ramped up the paranoia a little bit more. But I felt
Stop
like it
calling
was
me
there.
Jerry.
Yeah, that was funny. And like, Dennis Hoffman's character, he does just kind of fall into his psychologist like role, and starts sort of trying to like talk to them and talk to everybody as though he's a therapist, which he is. And I thought that was kind of funny, and I liked it, because it's like you got some like Earth guy trying to, because I think it's an alien. It's like you're just talking to this thing. Like, I liked it though. I thought it was funny.
I just didn't find that the characters like strengths were used well enough. The fact
Mm,
that you have like this mathematician, that you
yeah,
have this therapist, I feel like each one of them has like almost like a superpower
sure.
because they're supposed to be the best in their field.
Yeah.
And while it's used to some degree, I just felt like it could have been smarter. And with it being Michael Crichton, I would expect that to be so. So maybe the book has
I was
a
just gonna say, I
it does
would,
it better, and then in a movie, it's just cut down too
yeah,
much.
I was gonna say, I would imagine that the book would be a little bit more in depth in those things.
Leaf Schreiber's
So
character is funny too because he's also pretty full of shit. He just wants the credit. That's like
yeah,
all he cares about.
yeah, because he's a physicist, and he's like, if you haven't done anything by the age of whatever
It was
in
so young.
physics, yeah, because
It's
all
like
these
25 or
famous,
30.
yeah, yeah, it was crazy. He's like, if you haven't done it, like, you're not gonna do it,
He's acting
which
like
seems like
he's acting
crazy to
like he's
me.
a fucking gymnast.
That seems so crazy to me. I'm sure that's not true nowadays, but just because people live longer, and back in the day people were only living until they were 30, so it's like, yeah, you had to make some kind of discovery before then,
Yeah,
but now
sure.
it's like you could probably make some crazy discovery in your 60s or later if you really, anyway.
Yeah, they're all about their egos and
Yes.
like what they've done and their dick measuring and they got all those moments with each other. So they're all kind of full of it, and then they all agree in the end that they can't tell them what they found because it's an unknown event. And so they have to agree to keep it to themselves.
Yeah, the ending is a little confusing. I know we talked about it, where it's like they're agreeing to forget, but you would think that they would still have the ability, and it would just be happening without them knowing what was happening,
Yeah,
because
that doesn't make sense
I
to
think
me.
it
They
should have
should
been
still have the superpower or
phrased
whatever.
differently. Like, we're going to agree to forget and not use it or something. But because they didn't know they had it, and it was still happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So like the forgetting would just take them back to them being like, what is happening?
100%.
Yeah, that I agree. I think that's definitely like weird, and I don't like the way that's written. But I really like when it's the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and it's the tentacle
All the books
monster,
in the
and
cupboards.
yeah, like all that stuff I thought was really cool and like nightmarish. So those are the aspects that I liked of it, but it's not perfect or anything. So yeah,
It's fine. I liked it okay.
yeah,
It's fine. You liked it more than me.
yeah, I did.
All right, next up, we saw this is from 2025. We saw this in the theaters. This
Yes.
is Woody Harrelson.
Yep.
Um, and this is The Last Breath. So you'll get a little mini review here. We'll keep it spoiler free, but this is a true story
Yeah.
about a diver who they go down and they work on these. What is it? It's like
It's not oil, but it's like these.
Oh yeah, pipelines.
Yeah. Oh, it is oil.
It's
The
oil, oil
pipelines.
pipelines.
Crazy.
And yeah, they're out in a storm and they're down there. They get disconnected, and he gets left down there with only 10 minutes of oxygen.
Yeah.
And let's just say he's left down there much longer than you would ever think possible.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a true story. You know what's going to happen. You know he's going to get saved. You just
Sure.
don't know unless you've looked into the story, which we didn't.
Yeah.
We were thinking like, oh, what's he gonna be down there? 5, 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's so
Bro.
much longer, and that is shocking, and it's so fascinating. I mean, yeah, this is a very, because you know that this is something, real people went through.
Yeah.
And that makes it all the more like intense and insane, and just the dedication and the like love of everybody trying to rescue this guy and just doing everything that they can, and it really is one of those like man versus nature, like doing their best to try and not conquer nature, but like work and like fight through it to save somebody. And I think that's really inspiring. And Woody Harrelson is wonderful. He's always great. um Really cool story. And I like in these kind of like true stories where at the end they'll show you like the real people
Yeah.
and stuff, and so you do get that here, which I really liked. But it's shocking what happens, so shocking.
I'll say this. For me, I think the integrity of the film is commendable, which I always appreciate. When I had written my life story and we were gonna make a play out of it years and years ago, I got into a bit of an argument with the director of the play because I didn't want to have any artistic liberties taken with the story. And she was like, "Well, if you're going to be like that, then we shouldn't do the play. Like you're gonna have to embellish, right? Almost like the Gandalf saying of every good story has some embellishments." And I was just very adamant on like, no, it has to remain exactly how it happened, or I'm not interested. And you know, in this, I feel like they did try to make that the case, and in doing so, a it didn't feel like an eventful enough thing to
Mm,
sustain an entire film. Like what it ends up all being, I can summarize to you in like a minute. There's not there's not really a ton that happens. It's a very quick, very straightforward event
yeah.
where it's just kind of someone gets dislodged and then they try to like get the ship back and then get him and then bring him up. Like that's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's that's pretty much the movie, right? So there's not really a whole mess that goes on, and so they kind of have to pad it a bit
Yeah.
with some of the characters moments and whatnot. And I feel like I commend them, once, as I said, for not adding a bunch of Hollywoodisms
Yeah.
to it. They really just kind of probably told it exactly how it happened, but in doing so, by keeping the integrity of the story, it ended up kind of being a bit dull,
Mm,
even though I think the story itself is like a miracle. It's fascinating for sure, but I just don't know if there's enough here for an entire hour and a half of
mm.
story.
I didn't mind it. I know what you're saying. It is because it's true. It's not. Um, I think, yeah, some people might find,
Super eventful.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fair. But because it is a real thing, I just think that all of that makes it, all the more interesting.
Sure.
So, but yeah, yeah, it was cool to see it in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, really good attention to detail. Felt very authentic.
yeah,
Obviously, they worked with the people who were on these
yes,
things, so I'm sure if you're somebody who's a diver or has worked
yeah,
on these things, you'll be like, oh yeah, they're actually doing things realistically, which is
right,
great. You don't see that a lot, but on the flip side of that, the reason you don't see that a lot is because a lot of the times it's just not as interesting,
yeah,
right? Like most audiences don't give a shit. Most audiences are just there to be entertained.
yeah,
They want the more thrilling aspects, right? Um, and with this one, they just kind of, this is more like a dry recital of events,
Yeah.
um, which is cool. Which is cool. Last was it last year? I think that movie that I really enjoyed that was kind of similar to this, but that just had so much more to it, and it was such an insane story.
Oh, I think this was a couple years ago. Are you talking about the one with the caves and
Yeah,
the? I think that was a few years ago that we watched
with
that.
Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah, yeah,
That shit was intense, and I didn't know what happened. I didn't. I was positive that X amount of people were going to die or
yeah.
whatever, and was very surprised on what ended up happening. So I can't remember what that one's called right now, though, off the top of my head.
I can't either.
Um, but man, what a really good, I think that's directed by Ron Howard. It's a really damn good movie,
Yeah,
and I didn't watch, or we did start to watch the
we
documentary
did.
based
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
But man, that one I was fully engaged with. That one really had me going. I'm gonna need my notes because yeah. All right. Lastly, fifth film, final film. Anything more to say about The Last Breath?
No, that's it.
No. You got a little bean.
We have a little mean here
All
today.
right, last one here is a movie I haven't seen in forever. This is the one James Cameron film that I'm not super familiar with. I'd only ever seen it one time, and this is The Abyss. I was very excited to rewatch this because I do love all of Cameron's films and I know them all very well, whether it's the two Terminator films or True Lies or Aliens or Titanic or the Avatar movies. I've always been a big fan of everything he does. He's such a spectacle director, and he's always pushing the effects of the time to
Mm,
their maximum potential. He kind of goes in and sets the bar for everyone to live up to. He kind of goes in and reinvents the wheel, and every company from there is like trying to match what he goes and produces, right? And this being a film from the 80s, I think this is 89. Um, the effects on the water are
oh yeah,
incredible.
yeah. Really
Like,
cool.
there's nothing like this
Yeah,
in the 80s.
yeah,
I can't think of a single film that has effects like CGI, computer generated effects like this. Like, typically in the 80s, when you see CG, it's like so dated. It
yeah,
hurts the film. This didn't feel dated almost at all. It felt great. I was like, wow, that looks fucking great. Could they do it better today? Yeah, sure. But it did not feel that dated,
yeah.
shockingly, even though this thing is almost 40 years old.
Mhm, mhm.
That kind of blew me away.
Yeah, no, I didn't find that it felt dated at all. I yeah, this was my favorite movie that we watched.
Oh,
I
me
thought
too.
this one was definitely the best of all of them, and
That's not
it's
surprising because it's Cameron.
yeah, there on so many levels. I think that like, I do really like the whole like alien aspect because I didn't even really realize that people have like this conspiracy theories about underwater UFOs, but like I want to look into it more. But I really like it because, as we had just said, not that long ago in this um, talk about like only 5% being explored. I mean, it had to have
Yeah.
been even less then,
Yeah.
right? So it's like it is just this huge, vast unknown, and I think the characters, like relationships and everything, especially obviously the husband and wife, that was really solid. There's some really good drama, but then just also like good like relationship stuff in there. Um I liked everything with like the Marines or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that are brought in to save to try and like rescue this nuclear warhead and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension. And then obviously once things start happening and like the flooding happens and just dealing with everything on this rig and it being dragged down and all of it was intense and it's all paced really well, so yeah.
I mean, Cameron's the master. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just all there is to it. He's such a wonderful storyteller.
Yeah.
I think that he's one of the greats. for an obvious reason. He hasn't made a lot of films. I mean, he's like Kaylee now. His heart is in the ocean. Like he loves the ocean
Yeah.
as much as any person on this planet. He basically doesn't. He stopped making films for years and years and years because he was so obsessed with exploring the ocean. I
Yeah.
mean, the dude has been to the bottom of the Marianas Trench like multiple times. He's been
Yeah.
down to the Titanic like freaking 20 times. He's obsessed with the ocean,
Yeah.
and he has funded so many ocean dives and so much stuff. So if you're gonna love a director, James Cameron is definitely
Yeah.
your soulmate when it comes to the ocean.
Yeah.
And he always incorporates the ocean into most of his films. He just has such a deep love. Now supposedly this was a super problematic shoot,
Yeah.
where actors almost drown multiple times. Ed Harris
Oh my
and
gosh, his scene at the
they're
end.
they're all like they won't even discuss the film. Like they
That's pretty
refuse to
crazy.
discuss it because they have like post-traumatic stress
Yeah.
from filming these. While watching it, I didn't really get a sense of that it was all that more dangerous than other films like Leviathan or anything. Like,
Oh, I don't know. There's this one scene in here when all those guys that are in the like part of the crew just gets
yeah,
like totally drenched in water and
yeah.
like swept off their feet and then the door closes and they're all drowning. I mean, that was
I mean, I
terrifying
guess
and
he
like
learned a lot off that because I didn't ever heard anything of that like on Titanic. And there's
sure.
tons of those
Yeah.
scenes in
But then I mean,
Titanic.
you told me like Ed Harris like with the fluid stuff that he's supposed to have, like he's just holding his breath in like a whole thing of water,
But he's acting in it too.
which is insane. Like that's hard to do. It's hard to hold your breath for a long period of time, but then to also act and pretend like you're kind of breathing and whatever. Like all that is really difficult and he's underwater doing it as well, right?
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
it's one thing if you're on land and you're like, oh, I gotta take it off really quick, but you're underwater and you're full of water. Like, what the heck? That's insane.
It's odd to me though, and I actually don't like this, nor do you. But there's a scene where
Yeah.
a rat is actually held under
Yeah, I
this
hate that scene.
fluorocarbon, which is a real liquid that you can breathe. And it costs like $500 a gallon back then. And I if the rat can breathe it, I don't know. Can Ed Harris not breathe it too, or did he just not agree to it and the rat didn't have a say,
Hmm.
which is kind of upsetting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the idea of filling our lungs with fluid
Oh, sure.
so that you can descend and ascend fast without having to worry about the
Yeah.
bends, is a very cool idea. But even now, almost 40 years later, to my knowledge, no divers are using oxygenated fluid,
I've
for deep sea
never, I
diving.
literally had never heard about it until we watched this.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah, I
supposedly
mean,
it's a real thing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it's used for nowadays, if it is used, if it's safe on humans or maybe it's not and I don't know, but I mean, yeah, I feel like deep sea diving is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do besides going into space. Like our
Yeah,
bodies are just not equipped to be
no, we're not supposed to be
in
either of those
that
places.
deep.
Yeah,
Um Maybe one day with our technology it'll become a little bit easier, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, and with this, like he goes like how far down?
oh
Like
my god,
17,000 feet down or something? Over
farther, I
17.
think.
He's crazy. I mean, he goes so far down, he finds a whole civilization of aliens. Which that's the other thing. Like, I love the way they look because
Oh
we were just
yeah,
like we had said, like literally yesterday, we were watching, which we watched after this movie, but we were watching an episode of Blue Planet 2 about the Midnight Zone, and there's all these like fluorescent, like bioluminescent fish and jellyfish and just creatures down
yeah.
there. And so the aliens in this look like that. Like they look like they would be down there, which
The
is
aliens are
really
so cool in
cool.
this.
And that makes me think like, yeah, like James Cameron like is researching it and wanting it to be like accurate, right? Like if you could imagine an alien life form that would be living in the Earth's ocean in the deep, what would it look like? Like it probably would look like these other animals that are down there. So they're so cool.
They're so cool
Yeah,
looking.
I loved them.
Yeah,
They're like crafts and
very ethereal.
I mean, the one that saves him literally looks like an angel, which is super cool.
They
And
kind of almost remind me of the Ghost of Christmas
yeah,
present in
yeah,
the
kind
Muppets
of.
Christmas
Yeah,
Carol,
how
because
glowy
they're
they
like
are.
see through
Yeah.
and glowing.
And that ghost looks like it's kind of floating in
Yeah,
water too.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, I love the look of the
Me too.
aliens. There's not a lot of focus on them. They're mostly remain a mystery throughout
Yes.
the film, and like the big thrilling aspects and the like threat of the film is the nuclear warhead and
Yeah.
the Marines and
Yeah.
all of that. So, but I think there's a good balance to it. You know, I
Mhm.
was going to critique it at first and say like I wish there was more alien stuff, but I feel like it's it's one of those less is better things where if you see it too much, it'll like lose its like magic.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a good amount of like the mystery is still there. And everything with the water coming to like look at them and stuff, and just the way it's communicating, and how obviously at the end when they like project his like messages to them, and all that is really cool and interesting. um it's always fun when like the guy who's this like just average Joe is the first contact or whatever,
Yeah,
presumably. Could these aliens have met other humans? Maybe, but
yeah.
maybe not, because it's not like they obviously can go up to the surface though, because the ending is really funny when this giant craft just comes right up, and like the army, or the military, no, that's not the military, but it's just like the boat that's there, and um you know they all see it, they all see what happens,
Oh yeah.
so it's like,
The ending definitely has some question marks
yeah,
to it for sure. It's like there's this huge ship with all of these smaller ships on top of it, and they get off and they're all walking around out there, and then it just kind of ends, and it's like this is the United States military. They're bombing that thing. Like,
yeah.
I was like, where do we go from here? Like, what's after the credits of this movie? I was definitely at a lot of question
I mean,
marks with
yeah,
that, but
after the credits would be, they'd be like, all right, we need to now go down. We need to go deeper and be able to find, like, it's already been done once,
I feel like
obviously.
what happened with that though is that they kind of dropped back down once everyone was back on board and safe, and then flew out and over and out.
Like, left the planet.
Yes,
They're like,
they're like, peace out, you found
yeah.
us. Like now our and then they could have came back in later and landed somewhere else
They're
because the
like,
ocean's
gee.
so massive. Like
Yeah.
we, or they could just go down and move and go
Yeah.
somewhere else, and it's
Yeah.
like good luck finding us.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that the ship that was sunk by the aliens?
No. I
No,
don't.
just so
No, not at
happens.
all. They're very peaceful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was just happened, and
But good thing Ed Harris went down there
oh my
because that
gosh.
nuclear bomb would have killed them all. So I think that
Yeah.
they realize that and they save
Yeah,
him.
definitely.
So he saves them and they save
Yeah.
him, and they are very peaceful. And when they're like mirroring their faces and
Yeah.
everything,
Really cool.
there is a scene in this though. Drowning is always a very scary concept, of course. And
Mm.
one of the more realistic drowning scenes I've ever watched was in, funny enough, the Rock movie,
Mm.
San Andreas, with Alexander Daddario's character drowning. And she's like, the way she's violently reacting to taking in the fluid, it was
Yeah.
just like, it's kind of stuck with me. And we get another drowning scene in here, and Kaylee and I have these scenes that happen in these movies where people are dead and like they're giving them CPR, and it's
Oh,
after like a
yes.
minute or two, people are like,
They're
they're gone,
done. Like,
and they're like,
stop.
keep working, and they're like, stop, and it's like, just fucking let them do it. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
Like, what are they hurting? The person's dead.
Yeah, like if someone's been sitting there for like 2 hours
Yeah.
doing CPR, then I get it. But it always
A
makes me
week
laugh.
later, they're still going. I'd be like,
Yeah.
bro, they're dead.
Yeah.
It's
It's
it's time
always,
to
it's
give it
like
up.
they've been doing it for like a minute and they're like, gotta
They're
stop.
like, you gotta give it up. It's like,
Yeah.
no, dude, I'm not giving it up for at least
Yeah.
10 to 15 minutes.
Her drowning scene was pretty scary too, because she's like, she's the one that comes up with the idea of like, I'm gonna have to drown and you're gonna have to like swim me back and like try and revive me. But when she like, gets to it and she's like trying to take her last breath and she's like, I'm scared and stuff, it's like,
Oh, God,
oh
yeah.
my god, like it would be so hard to like knowing, even though everybody always says that drowning is supposed to be peaceful.
Painless.
And I'm like, how? How do you know? A,
I
because
think
you've
they
never
say it's
drowned.
painless, but
Maybe painless,
regardless,
yeah.
it's like you're still freaking out.
Yeah, if you're aware and like awake when it's happening, like and you're breathing in liquid, like
Have you ever
I was
taken
gonna say, have you
like
ever
if you
taken a
ever
sip of water and it goes down the wrong?
it's the most brutal
You're like,
thing. It
it
hurts
hurts
horrible.
so
And if
bad.
you're like doing that, but like
Yeah,
all you're doing is sucking in more water, there's no way drowning is. I saw
I don't know.
bullshit.
I do too.
You know who knows what it's like to drown? Dead people.
Dead people
Dead people don't
know.
tell.
Yeah,
Dead men tell no tales.
yeah. We need like to grow gills so we
Yeah,
can swim underwater.
we just need some gilly
We
weed.
need some gillyweed. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what else James Cameron is the master of? Is being able to show titties in a movie and still have it be PG-13. He
Yeah.
does that with this, and
I
he does
think
that with Titanic.
with this one especially, with Titanic I don't know because Titanic is not in this context. But I was going to say in this context, it's like a CPR, like she's not being sexualized
Not
at
at all.
all.
No,
It's like
not at
we
all.
need to get her clothes off so we can do the freaking defibrillator on her. Yeah.
Man, she is so cute.
Oh yeah, she's adorable.
I mean, I remember her somewhat. She was a bit of a '90s,
Hmm.
late '80s, early '90s. Like she was in Robin Hood with
Hmm.
Kevin Costner as Maid Marian. I don't remember her in much, but god damn, she was adorable in this movie.
Yeah, she's really spunky too and like just she's really smart and like,
She kind of
you
reminds me of
know.
Andy McDowell a bit,
Hmm.
you know,
Mhm.
Margaret
Yeah.
Qualley's
Yeah.
mama.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought she
Um,
was great in this, and I really like their relationship. I like that Ed Harris, like, he goes to flush his ring down the toilet because he's all mad at her, and then he grabs it out, and his hand's blue for most of the film, but it also saves him on, like, this door is shutting, and he, like, puts his hand out, and the ring, like, is
yeah,
strong enough to hold the door open, which I don't know if that would happen. I feel like his
I don't
finger would
care.
still break, but I love it
It's
because
his
it's like,
commitment to his marriage that
yeah,
saves
and
him.
that's like
It's
they repair
poetic.
their relationship, and I like that.
100%. 100%.
Even though we were joking, saying that like at the end they were like, we only said those things because you thought you were dying, so still
He
want a
always has great
divorce.
characterizations. He knows how to do wonderful callbacks and have a
Yeah,
lot of meaning
yeah,
to the symbols and iconography and
yeah,
whatnot in his films. So he's just yeah he's such a freaking great filmmaker
yeah,
in all regards. His direction, his writing, everything is just very clean. Like ever, you always know exactly what's going
yeah,
on. You are rooting for the people you're supposed to. He knows how to build characters so well. He's the master of the sequel as well. He's done 3 sequels now, and they are all for me better than their previous. Even though the previous films are all great on in themselves, I feel like he kind of almost always outdoes. Now, of course, people are gonna have opinions on Alien versus Aliens or Terminator versus Terminator 2 or Avatar versus Avatar: Way of Water, but I always prefer the sequels of his movies. He just knows how to one up himself. Uh, Very much looking forward to Fire and Ash, the third Avatar movie coming out this
yeah,
year.
yeah.
I know a lot of people are down because it's like cool to hate the Avatar movies, but I fucking love them.
That's so crazy. The amount of work and like for so many different people in those films.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are just kind of incredible, incredible works of art.
And speaking
So
of Titanic, freaking Billy Zane from earlier,
yeah,
and always got to give a shout out to Billy
yeah.
Zane's villain character in Tales
Titanic.
from the
Oh, and
Crypt,
Tales from the Crypt.
Demon Knight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's great in that.
but I love him in Titanic. I love Titanic.
Yeah,
There's another film that most like guys especially have to be like, I don't like that
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I think it's fucking
It's a
awesome.
wonderful film. So
So yeah, The Abyss.
yeah,
Really, really cool stuff. Michael Biehn as well, who appears in almost all of Cameron's early films. Reese making his appearance here. So
yeah,
anyway, that's that. Our I'm glad we only did 5 because I do not want to talk about another one.
yeah.
We did like 3 other reviews before this. We've been sitting here talking for almost
A
2
couple
straight
hours.
hours,
Yeah,
so I'm burnt.
this was our marine horror mystery marathon, ocean horror. I was trying to get it to be like MMMMM,
Oh,
like marine mystery
there
marathon.
was a Marine in The Abyss, 2 Marines.
Yes,
He's always got the Marines in his movies.
that guy was messed up. He was like,
Yeah, Michael
That was
Biehn's
great.
really good
You
in
did a
this.
good job.
He plays Paranoid very well,
Yeah.
and I really there's not a single character in The Abyss that I didn't like or dislike,
The
but
fact
purposely dislike.
the fact that your body, like, if you go down to certain depths, like, you will literally like have psychosis, and like your nervous
We're not
system
supposed
will
to be
like
down
freak
there.
out is crazy to me. Like, I've been talking to you like about scuba diving and stuff, and how I'm like, I just learned like a week ago that when you scuba dive, like, you have to, like, obviously you don't breathe out your nose, but you have to like breathe in and out of your mouth, and you like can't hold your breath at all because your
Your lungs
lungs
will.
could like rupture or tear or whatever. And that terrified me because I like hold my breath subconsciously from anxiety. And I was like, but I have like less than zero interest in physically going down that deep into the ocean.
Yeah,
I would only ever want to stay like near the surface. Like,
yeah.
I would love to like send little robots down there and look through the robots' eyes,
That's what you do with these documentaries.
which is kind of, yeah, what I do. But I don't want to go down there. All these movies are just like, yeah, don't go super deep in the ocean, basically.
I mean, yeah, there's just places humans aren't meant to be, right?
And super duper deep in the ocean is one of those places.
And places that are super cold, same thing, right? Like if you go outside and you try to breathe in oxygen that's under a certain degree, like 40 below or colder, you're like it'll crystallize inside your lungs and you'll like break inside
Crazy.
and you'll bleed out. So yeah, just we're supposed to
We have our habitats and our climates.
correct. And
But
I
we're
don't
we're adventurous little guys.
I'm not,
We're
man.
like, let's go
I don't like being too
exploring.
hot and I don't like being too cold. Yeah, I'm a wimp when it comes to that stuff. I just want it to be like 78 degrees always. It's like it's 72 degrees in your head all the time. What movie? All right,
All right.
that's that. We'll see you in the comments. Stay out of the ocean.
Bye.
Bye.